One of the last Spider-Man games to be released as a mainline title was originally 2014's The Amazing Spider-Man 2 video game, published by Activision, but created by Beenox. From my understanding, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was looking to meet some expectations that fans may have wanted for a next movie tie-in video game. I won't get into major details, but The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 and what these movie tie-in games had to offer, but for now, all I can really say is that they were very underwhelming and left players wanting more than what they were given. But it wasn't until recent years that we finally received a Spider-Man game that was treated and handled with proper care by a familiar video game company who rose up to the challenge to bring our favorite web swinger to new heights. What's up, Nostalgics? Glad to have you here with me as we talk about one of my favorite Spider-Man video games of all time, but a Spider-Man title we needed within modern gaming, demonstrating the importance of being greater. There's nothing out there that brings me more joy than diving into a heartfelt journey with Insomniac's take on the Spider-Man universe, but characters you know and love within new roles and situations that bring that classic but new Spider-Man story to life. So let's buckle up and go on a web-swinging joyride to Spider-Man's new AAA home, from being released in 2018 and finally being remastered in 2020. As far back as 2016, I remember diving into so many different Spider-Man video games from different consoles, diving into ones like Ultimate Spider-Man, Web of Shadows, and even Spider-Man 2, the movie game, and Shadow Dimensions, and the aforementioned Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 video games. Curiosity did spark me as I was trying to look into news and information on a possibly new Spider-Man video game. So after going through YouTube, I found a video online, and it was from June 2016, and that video was none other than this famous trailer that had helped spark new beginnings for Spider-Man in the gaming world.
No pressure, right?
Trailer not only blew my mind, but it left me with a weird feeling of confusion and worry. I've seen that multiple video gaming franchises were going through this phase of reboots. No franchise was unwilling to take their burnt out traditions and ideas and throw in a new way of rehashing or retelling the events of famous video game characters and stories. So seeing Spidey don a new look and costume was not only worrying, but it was also relieving, because seeing as this may be the start of an eventual escape from movie tie-in syndrome, it was very hard to tell where this new Spider-Man video game would go, with no in-depth gameplay or breakdown of what the story entailed, and plus more. A year had passed since E3 2016, and there was really no information regarding the new Spider-Man game. It got to that point where I almost forgot that there was even one in development, but I appreciate that time had passed, because it wasn't long before Insomniac Games came out to announce their inclusion at the Gaming Expo, as they bring Spidey alongside them. This was more than enough to get me hooked on seeing what this new world would bring, and sure enough, this gameplay demo was impressive, to an extent that would have me wanting more.
Yuri, I'm here.
What do you see?
Fisk's territory is ours now.
Not today.
Spider-Man!
Hey, big guy.
The guy who runs the homeless shelter?
Like I said, complicated. Sit tight, Yuri. I got this. Hi, is this the flight to Newark? I guess this is the plan! Please don't screw this up.
This absolutely shocked me. From what I could tell, I was enjoying every single bit of what Insomniac was willing to show with the gameplay demo. From Spidey's arrival to the gigantic set pieces, it gave an overall vibe and attitude of such a bigger scale than what we were used to. I was ready to put my trust in Insomniac, as we'd be seeing the game's release date sometime in 2018, but knowing that I was ready to learn more and be prepared for any and all info I could soak up to satisfy my need for Marvel's Spider-Man. If I thought watching that demo 30 different times was enough, then I seriously think that D23's inside look is what gave me every reason to believe that Insomniac was the perfect developer for this title.
The greatest thing about working on a Spider-Man game is that you're working on a Spider-Man game. The hardest thing is that it's a Spider-Man game.
I think that's how we go into every day we come here. There's this push to really get it right.
One of the most compelling things about Spider-Man is just when Peter Parker and Spider-Man's worlds collide. And we've tried really hard to weave the two stories together to create a story that is not necessarily just a superhero story, but a human story as well.
The core of our story is this duality between being Peter Parker and being Spider-Man. So many people have their own vision of what Spider-Man should look like, what he should sound like, and in the end, we just have to put a new and fresh twist on who he is.
And for us, it's really, really important to deliver those big spectacle moments, those near impossible scenarios that only someone like Spider-Man can survive, and put you in that action. We understand what this character means to people in here, and we're making this game with a lot of heart, and we're gonna do whatever it takes to give people the ultimate Spider-Man experience, the game that they've been waiting for.
When Insomniac proved to me that they cared about the character as much as the fans do, each and every single one of their words and their thoughts and feelings on getting Spider-Man right and creating an experience that would deliver for many Spider-Man fans alike was just very admirable. They aren't looking into making this game for the sake of a cash grab or just for the hell of it. They really are passionate about this character, and they are willing to deliver on an ultimate Spider-Man experience. And the inside look is what solidified my trust with Insomniac 100% of the way. I knew at heart that when Marvel's Spider-Man released, I was ready to dive into Insomniac's world, how they envisioned their Spider-Man story, respecting the traditions and keeping what you know and love about the character, but adding their own twist and nods to the gameplay and plot elements was more than enough for me to endure this fantastic journey in Spidey's new video game home at Insomniac. So without further ado, let's dive into the Spider-Man title we needed in modern gaming and the importance of being greater. The game starts you off with Peter waking up in his apartment. He gets an alert that the Kingpin is making rounds at Fisk Towers. Peter gets ready for one of the biggest days of his life, preparing himself to take down the biggest crime lord after 8 long years. The game doesn't cut you short with getting in on the action. Experiencing the first few moments of web swinging through the streets of New York, you're also introduced to the combat mechanics, which feel so snappy yet quick, as Spidey can punch, kick, slide underneath enemies, web them up, and even snatch weapons and kick ultimate ass. Making your way and arriving at Fisk Towers, the game introduces one of Spidey's supporting characters, Yuri Watanabe, a police officer who works alongside him while going up against crime. Given permission, Spidey busts through Fisk Towers and challenges the Kingpin. With awesome set pieces, banter, and our first boss fight, Spidey comes out victorious. But how far does Spidey's victory mean when the Kingpin's out of the picture? Let's hear what Kingpin has to say.
Inconvenience.
Whoop, gotta go. Hey, good luck, Willie. I have a feeling you're gonna need it.
Idiot! I'm the one who kept order in this city! 1 month! In 1 month you wish you had me back!
You heard it here, folks. Now, we've all must have felt like Fisk was saying this in the heat of the moment. He tried making his escape, took a beating from Spidey, and was arrested. But with another one of Spider-Man's triumphant victories against his longtime foes, this leaves the crime scene within New York become massively open. But you know what else is very open and ever-changing? Is Peter trying to find balance between his human life and his superhuman life. What I find important in this story is the idea that we're not only receiving Spider-Man, but Peter Parker as well. The human side of the narrative is definitely drawn out tremendously in Insomniac's Spider-Man world. From the beginning of the game, Peter must choose whether or not he pays his bills and avoids eviction, or stops Wilson Fisk to prevent the biggest crime lord from sneaking away. Having that struggle between keeping his world in check on top of taking down enemy and thug after thug. When Peter wins, Spider-Man loses, and when Spider-Man wins, Peter loses. There's this constant back and forthness between the two worlds that it hits home whenever it appears on screen, and throughout the story, you'll see both worlds colliding with each other in more ways than one. But before we dive into the game's story, why don't we go ahead and dive into the core aspects of Marvel's Spider-Man. So right off the bat, one of the best parts about a Spider-Man video game has to be the open world, and making it your playground. Insomniac put a lot of time and effort into developing a very sizable and accurate New York City, from the buildings to the jammed up traffic, hot dog carts, and the Central Park. The attention to detail is here, and I couldn't be happier with a New York that feels occupied and alive at the same time. Previous Spider-Man entries have created a New York City, but sometimes the open world would lack qualities that gave a sense of emptiness, being very small, or maybe being way too big for Spider-Man altogether, and lacking personality. But Insomniac went on all fours and brought us a New York City that felt just right. And speaking of a New York City that feels right, it needs to feel right traversing it. Now, a dying question that I had when this game's announcement was released was pretty simple. What does it feel like web swinging through Insomniac's New York? And I'm going to be 100% honest, it feels so damn good. We're talking about a traversal system that is not only easy to control, but you can get better at it as you practice each and every mechanic the game throws your way. The web's attached to buildings with just enough weight and consistency that allows Spider-Man to not only feel good while moving and swinging throughout the city, it just never seems to get old. You can almost even call it therapeutic. It's not a situation where Spider-Man's web swinging feels like he's floating in the air while shooting webs at buildings, let alone attaching to an imaginary sky building either. You genuinely feel like Spidey has weight, and depending on what level or height you're placed at while web swinging, will either shoot you forward, upward, or consistently in the middle of buildings and areas. Point launch is a mechanic that allows Spider-Man to pinpoint a marker, and with the press of the both L2 and R2, web zips towards his designated point of interest, and the player is allowed to push X to launch off of the point at the exact moment Spider-Man makes contact. It flows with the web swinging so well, and becomes an added combo and level of oomph that makes the traversal system that much more enjoyable. There's even a small selection of air tricks that can give the swinging a little added flair, and a web zip to help you cross against gaps and help to keep the player within the air for a little while longer. There's also the added addition of parkour, albeit though parkour is activated through the holding of the R2 button. It is randomly generated as to what Spider-Man does depending on what object you're about to hover over. Spidey also comes equipped with a dive bomb mechanic. It allows the player at any moment while going through the air to shoot downward and hitting the swing button to launch themselves into the air, resulting in some speed and elevated height. I have nothing but good words about the traversal system, but if there's any criticism that presents itself, I must say that the dive bomb or the swan dive doesn't feel as weighted and momentum based as it could be. You can jump from the game's highest point and push that L3 button and still hit the swing mechanic, but never feel that hard snap as you see Spider-Man being able to just fly through the air, or moving quick enough to channel this flow of momentum and grace with this cool mechanic. I've actually gotten super lucky because I pulled out this game-breaking glitch that causes Spider-Man's momentum to fluctuate and leaves the player moving at a fast rate, moving through New York City and swinging for a period of time in such a quick manner. For the most part, the web swinging feels the best it could possibly be, but noticeable moments where the game forces Spidey to stay above this imaginary line of not touching the ground at a certain level puts less risk and capitalization on rewarding skill-based traversal, and opting for a more autopilot method of keeping everyone at a basic swing level. I will give Insomniac props for thinking of not just consistent and recurring players, but the casual players as well. And lastly, the variety of which Spider-Man's air tricks are offered, which only allows 4 basic inputs of Spidey doing front flips, back flips, and left and right side spins. If you get lucky enough, he will also do this neat downward torpedo spin when you push him off of a building while naturally diving down. But seeing this for the first time was really cool, but point being, more tricks would have made being stylish an absolute treat. I do understand, if Insomniac didn't have enough time to implement more air tricks, I think that is perfectly fine, because nonetheless, I really do love the traversal system. The best way to describe Spidey's fighting style in this title is that he's an acrobatic improviser. What this means is simple. He's the type of fighter to use the environment and what's lying around on top of his already existing and obtainable gadgets and hand-to-hand combat to overcome challenges and foes that face his way. Need be, whether he latches onto a trash can, an enemy's gun, shoots a web bomb in your face, or even decides to let out the spider drone. Our Spider-Man is ready to kick some ass, tackling enemies in such an advanced way. It feels super snappy and quick. You can even approach enemy encounters with some stealth as well. There are a few options for stealth takedowns, ranging from being in your perch position, sailing from behind, or just picking off enemies one by one with the gadgets and web strike takedowns. Speaking of web strikes, this mechanic that allows Spidey to shoot a web and come charging in their general direction is a neat way to not only deal damage, but reach enemies from afar. It's a very useful fighting mechanic that never overstays its welcome. A big part of Spidey as a character is his iconic Spidey sense. When the enemy charges up an attack, Spider-Man's head flashes, giving the player an indication that it's time to dodge. And that's very important. Spidey doesn't just simply parry or counterattack immediately after hitting the dodge button. He hovers over the enemy in a quick manner, emphasizing an open window of opportunity. There's even an ability to perfect dodge. If the player dodges at the last second, this creates a slowed down version of Spidey sense, rewarding those who wait to the last second to test the waters and put the pummel on enemies faster than they had ever anticipated. Enemies also are another key part to the game's combat. You'll encounter stuff like big brutes, gun-holding and sword-wielding bad guys, men with whips, and even enemies with shields and powerful armor. These are all required to have different approaches, as not every single enemy is easily taken down the same way as the last. This allows the player to switch it up when dealing with more than one enemy type. Gadgets also play a huge role, considering that you have web bomb, your web shooters, a spider drone, electric web, an impact web, a concussive blast, and even a suspended matrix. And you do have multiple options to take control of the battle. And another key yet crucial part of the game's combat is the meter bar. The meter allows the player to heal themselves, and when a meter stock is built up, this enables finishers, which are cool and unique ways to critically put an enemy down for the count. Spidey's combat feels great, but if there's anything that I could ask about making better of the system in a future game, it's to at least update the basic combat in general. I do admire that there's amazing finishers in the game because they feel fantastic and creative, but the power of a future combat system should really fall into the player's hands, having more control, so the player should be able to 110% be capable of pulling off a wide variety of different punches, kicks, maybe even taking web shooters and web capabilities to a new level. If the game offered a more stylish, more combo-driven gameplay, I do think if they take notes from games like Devil May Cry, Yakuza, Ninja Gaiden, God of War, and so on and so forth, which are really good and great examples of what combo-driven and player skill-based combat could bring to the table. Also too, taunts would be another nice added addition to the game. If there's one thing that Insomniac didn't stray away from, it was implementing alternate suits for Spider-Man in this game, ranging from new advanced suit, to the Spider-Punk suit, to the MCU's Iron Spider costume, and even a Flaming Skull one. There is variety, and there's so many to choose from. For the last 2 to 3 years now, Insomniac have been amply supporting and providing new inclusions of suits, which is such a novelty, given that we've received like the Future Foundation suit, Fantastic Four's bombastic Bagman, all of the movie suits, even the likes of the recently released Advanced Tech suit and the Arachnid Rider suit with inside of the remaster. Instead of waiting for the next mainline entry, Insomniac took the liberty of just spoiling us and going the extra mile of providing these fantastic added additions, and I couldn't be more thankful. But what makes the in-game unlockable suits special are their suit abilities. These offer various effects that can play key roles in combat or even traversal. Want to to glide and soar through the air diligently, but keep the enemies in the air for a little bit longer. The low gravity ability. Want to take out and web up every enemy in the room? Equip the Web Blossom. Want to throw in some cheesy quips for the hell of it? Go ahead and equip it, because there's nothing stopping you from trying out and seeing which one fits your personal needs.
If you surrender, I'll give you cupcakes. Hey, it's worked before. Ever wonder if we'd be friends if we met under different circumstances? Yeah, me neither. Hey, real talk. You're kind of bad at this.
So not only are you unlocking and purchasing new suits with the in-game tokens, but you're also reaping the benefit and the rewards of trying to approach the game in a new way with each unlockable suit and their ability. And keep in mind, you do have the ability to play the game in almost any suit from front to back. And it's really cool. It also is able to be shown within cutscenes in the video game, excluding certain scenes, but those are pretty minuscule. With an open world to explore and indulge in, there needs to be substance. We need to keep ourselves occupied while finding and uncovering new and exciting ways to feel like our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. The game's overworld has numerous amounts of activities and collectibles to achieve and finesse. Throughout New York City, backpacks that include lore and classic Spider-Man items and references that litter through the city are just waiting to be uncovered, along with the added addition of needing to fix signal-jammed network towers across the city. This allows the player to discover the likes of enemy hideouts, where you run through waves of enemies and clear out their territory, research stations, locations that help provide insight on helping to regulate and keep the environment in New York City safe and protected, photo op locations and landmarks, becoming your own personal photographer and tourist by capturing photos of famous areas. Taskmaster challenges are putting Spider-Man to the test by completing training sequences scattered throughout the city, Black Cat stakeouts, finding and uncovering cat toys with voice recordings left behind, and even a good amount of side missions. It also allows a very wide variety and range that breaks in between missions and story beats. And besides the main game, it leaves the entire city open for more to do. You definitely have the ability to just say you can do a lot of the activities and a lot of the stuff on the side, or shoot straight for the story, or just balance out between the two. It offers a lot of uniqueness to the game, and I think that this is perfect. You don't have to feel like you're driven to complete everything and anything before completing the rest of your story, and vice versa. While all of the finer aspects and livelihoods surrounding Marvel's Spider-Man will have you spending hours in the open world, let's dive deep and take a closer look at the ongoing story for Spider-Man and Peter Parker's world. After one hell of a triumphant victory over the Kingpin, Peter finds his way towards his day job, where there lies the one and only Otto Octavius. With an experiment gone wrong, Peter fixes the damages caused by Otto's travesties.
Power damper. Oh man. Maybe we should abort.
Not yet.
Dr. Octavius, are you okay?
Another setback. But we're close.
A recurring theme of ups and downs that both men face continuously throughout their scientific partnership. Peter's battle-damaged classic suit is in need of repairs and TLC. While fixing up his suit in Otto's lab, Otto catches Peter by surprise, creating an elephant in the room. While Peter dismisses any attempt to cover his secret identity, Otto catches on to the belief that Pete's Spidey's handyman.
Of course. It's you.
I wanted to, but I was afraid that if word got out, my family might be in danger.
Yes. I guess if you design his equipment, you're bound to be a target too. Don't worry. Your secret's safe.
Offering advice and blueprints that will soon help to create the iconic Advanced Suit.
Excuse me, late for work!
This suit dons a beautifully enlarged white spider symbol on the chest, with white accents and padding on various parts of the suit to offer heftier protection. After taking a swim through New York City, enter Feast Homeless Shelter. Martin Lee, the founder and well-known philanthropist, is throwing a surprise party for Aunt May, spending her 5 years of countless dedication and endless service towards helping and working for the better of those in need. May plays a crucial role in this game's narrative. She's a mother figure, let alone an adult who has given her time, attention, and support to Peter when he needs it the most.
Are you in trouble? Do you need money?
No, I mean, I'm a little behind on my rent, but no, I'm fine. These past few years, you helping me through college and working here, and sacrificing so much and asking for nothing. I just wish there were more people like you in the world.
He's right. 5 years ago, you walked in here and told me you were inspired by my mission to help others. Now it's you who inspires me.
It's not long before an infiltration at a nearby art museum occurs. A group of masked individuals are ransacking it, and surprise, surprise, the one and only Mary Jane arrives on the scene.
Hey, Pete.
MJ? What are you doing here?
Same as you. Working.
MJ works for the Daily Bugle as a reporter. She's been recently climbing her way through the ranks and isn't afraid to get her hands dirty if it means getting the scoop on some New York City's biggest stories. During MJ's undercover espionage, she uncovers hidden files that are labeled Devil's Breath. With little to no time to spare, MJ bumps into Spider-Man. MJ and Peter haven't been on the best terms. Peter and MJ have had relationship troubles.
There's a lot of baggage here.
Yeah, sure, but is that so bad? I mean, baggage can carry good things too, like money and keys, and raspberry lip balm.
Do you remember why we broke up?
After having dinner and a brief chat, police sirens and cop cars begin shooting down the streets. Spider-Man rushes to meet the man of the hour, Shocker. With chasing and detaining the hot-headed suspect, Peter gets a history lesson from Martin Lee back in Feast, learning that the mask MJ discovered at the art gallery is linked to the meaning demon, advising Peter to stay away before trouble comes rolling along for those who associate with it. Now, enter Norman Osborn. He makes his appearance, interrupting Otto's work with a patient and bringing them over to Oscorp research, sparking that rivalry that brews between both men.
This isn't about safety infractions, is it?
I'm trying to help you, Otto. You're free to continue your work in a secure environment.
At Oscorp.
You always were the smartest guy in the room.
Norman is running for mayor again, doing his best to solidify and hold together NYC in the way he sees best fit. Considering his position and his status, it's hard to deny that Norman isn't the successful one between Otto and him. After having another battle between Shocker at a bank and Fisk's men protecting an important warehouse from the demons, Spidey is aided by an NYPD police officer named Jefferson Davis. Spidey and this brave officer managed to stop the demons from escaping with a truck full of deadly weapons. In the heat of the situation, Spidey stops a truck from colliding with an oncoming subway train, but Jefferson Davis risks his life in a collision with a demon, showing nothing more than heroic bravery and saving Spider-Man in the midst of it. Peter's world comes crashing down on him as he comes back home to notice that his apartment has been evicted. Losing everything, he searches for his belongings and recovers important Spidey equipment. Spidey gets a voicemail, and it comes from our favorite feline stealing enthusiast, Black Cat.
Hey there, Spider. Long time no see. Miss me? Come to this address. Catch me if you can. Hello, Spider. Been thinking about you a lot lately. We were good together, weren't we? Maybe it's time to reignite the flame.
What is she planning? when will the cat's claws finally strike? After crashing at Feast and being provided financial support from May, with news from Martin Lee, the philanthropist is going to be out of commission for a while. This leaves Aunt May in charge of Feast while he's gone. Jefferson Davis is then being awarded at a ceremony in Town Hall, but before the public event, he tips Spider-Man off to a nearby Fisk construction site. The demons are then holding a lot of Fisk site workers hostage. A big question that those may have is, how is Fisk still holding a candle to his power, even being behind bars? After a brief phone call and word from Fisk and multiple battles, Spider-Man learns the demons are on the move with other deadly weapons, once more providing with epic set pieces like a collapsing crane lift to crashing and burning through buildings and keeping a helicopter from crashing into the city.
Please don't screw this up!
Spidey heroically saves the day in a grandiose manner. Now, we are introduced to Miles, a Spider-Man superfan who is on his way to his father, Jefferson Davis's award ceremony. With the speech in play and the event taking place, Osborn gets an unsettling call from a familiar voice.
Yes?
I've worked many years for this moment.
Who is this?
Over the coming days, your company, your city, and everything you care about will be destroyed. People will beg you for help, but you won't be able to save them.
Listen, jackass, I get threats like this twice a week. Why don't you grow a pair and tell me what you want?
To watch you suffer.
And in the midst of it all, the entire city hall is hit with a terrorist attack from the demons, initiated by Martin Lee. Bombs going off. People are hurt and injured, like Peter and Miles' mom. The warm, sentimental atmosphere has now turned into a dark, unsettling event. While looking for his father, avoiding and sneaking around the demons, and almost dying in the process, we see that Jefferson Davis has unceremoniously lost his life, being sadly uncovered by Miles himself.
Dad, no! Wake up, Dad. Wake up. Wake up.
This motivates Peter to gather evidence that Martin Lee was behind the City Hall bombing and murder of Miles' father, feeling responsible for all of this. But in the process, enters Silver Sable.
This is Silver Sablinova, head of Sable International, a private security force, paid for by Mayor Osborn.
Oh, the mayor has a pet army now?
Working with Mayor Osborn to offer reinforced protection with Martin Lee and the demons on the move, Peter delves into Lee's office, an entire booby-trapped planning room uncovering the Devil's Breath files lost from the gallery. Martin catches Peter leaving the blocked-off area, which begs the question, does Martin Lee know that Peter knows what exactly he's planning? Well, yeah, you see, Lee's men jumps Peter outside, but Peter manages to protect himself. Soon enough, a moment of failure strikes Octavius Industries, as we see another failed attempt at progress by Otto, and another moment of uncertainty strikes. But Peter, despite realizing how difficult and taxing their research and testing can be, he continues to show nothing but loyalty and willingness to work with Otto in an attempt to continue bringing hard but greater passion and dedication to their scientific research.
That's a lot of work for you to do by yourself. Sure you can handle it?
Apparently not, judging by today's debacle.
Because I still haven't found another job.
My funds are still...
I know. It's okay. Don't worry, I'll figure it out. What's a few bucks when you're trying to change the world, right?
MJ sneaks into a nearby Tombstone workshop. She uncovers GPS trackers and blueprints for an armored truck being built for Lee. Spidey then infiltrates an office, where the demons are hunting down a man named Charles Standish for files on the Devil's Breath. The files help identify a man by the name Dr. Isaac Delaney, falling through an elevator shaft and saving Standish. Spidey searches at a nearby ESU party, looking for the doctor and encountering costumed civilians dressed up as his older foes. As the demons infiltrate the school, and interrogate the dog. Isaac is manipulated by Martin Li's negative side and blurts out any and all info about the man behind Devil's Breath, who is then named Dr. Michaels. Spider-Man takes a stroll and sneaks into Oscorp Towers, uncovering files of a virus codenamed GR27, Devil's Breath, and the one and only sample is held with Dr. Michaels at all time. MJ sneaks into a nearby Sable compound and finds Standish to learn about Michael's whereabouts. But before learning any information, Spider-Man crashes the party and causes a scene. This sparks heated tensions between MJ and Pete. She recaps that Peter treating her like she's a damsel in distress or a baby is the reason they split up, causing confusion among Peter and distress within inside him.
Okay, another thing. Sorry, Charlie. You knock a man out, destroy my background research, and the best you've got is sorry, Charlie? Is everything a joke to you? You know this is exactly why we broke up.
I thought we broke up so you could focus on your career.
We broke up because you wouldn't stop treating me like a baby. Don't do this, MJ. Don't do that, MJ. Oh, that's too dangerous, MJ. I may not have super spider powers, but I'm not made out of glass.
Did you learn anything about Dr. Michaels?
Fine. Michaels is in the Bowery somewhere. Sable's moving him tomorrow at noon. Listen, I gotta go, Peter. Filing deadline.
Peter. That's how you know she's still mad. Peter. Nice work, Mr. Superhero.
Pete visits Otto at the lab. Otto's latest creation, the neural interface, is now being tested on. With control from Otto's mind and a brief demonstration, Otto and Pete have managed to create some of their best work yet. But despite this success, Otto reveals to Peter that he's plagued with a neurological disease that causes his muscles to lock up, reassuring Parker of possibly siding his future with another employer.
Doctor, what's going on?
My doctors call it a degenerative neurological disorder, probably caused by overexposure to toxic chemicals in my reckless youth. The part is, it only affects the muscles. If you'd like to seek a position with more of a future.
I came here to work for you because of what you've got up here. And that's not going anywhere. So neither am I.
Pete makes it loud and clear that he's passionate about his work with Octavius, so he plans to stay, once again showing his loyalty to his mentor / best friend. Miles begins running late to his first day at Feast, but this comes at the cost of getting jumped by a bunch of street thugs. In Spidey's heroic yet friendly neighborhood fashion, he saves and protects Miles. Being face to face with the young adolescents sparks excitement out of Miles, but while Spider-Man tells him to stay out of trouble and to leave the fighting to the pros, Miles makes it clear that he believes in fighting for what's right, but doesn't know how. With one sentimental moment between superhero and superfan, you see the bravery and sign of determination from Miles.
Oh, like that time you fought Rhino on the Brooklyn Bridge? That was so awesome. Perfect example. If the other guy's bigger, you gotta be quicker. Okay? Okay, but that's easy for you to say. Sorry, I just can't do what you do. All right, put them up. Breathe slow, breathe deep, relax. Now use your feet. When they go off balance, look for an opening. Boom. Like that? Yeah, that's it. Okay, only this time? Okay, I can take it. Oh, sorry. No. It's all good. You keep that up and you'll be fine. All right, lesson's over. Gotta go. Hey, thanks. You know, anytime.
Could Miles be a hero himself one day? He makes his way through Sable checkpoints, displaying his hacking skills to avoid being detected, and makes it to Feast perfectly fine. Meeting Peter once more and being introduced to Aunt May, Miles is here to stay. Spider-Man finds a nearby Sable patrol where Dr. Michaels is being escorted. The demons are making their rounds in an attempt to capture Devil's Breath. They kidnap Michaels and begin making their way in an armored truck and duking it out with Spidey. As he attempts to stop the demons, Martin Li puts Spidey under his negative influence, making Spidey learn of Li's hatred for Norman, but persuading Spidey to join him in his ongoing vendetta against Norman. With snapping out of Li's trance and crashing into a nearby building, the demons make it away with Devil's Breath, leaving Sable pissed. Being a vigilante leaves her questioning his true intentions, only destroying and ruining everything he touches, making matters worse in her eyes. MJ makes her way over to Grand Central Station, where Stannis advises her that the demons are looking for a device. Then, Lee arrives on scene and holds the entire station on lockdown. In the heat of the pursuit, MJ contacts SpiderMan, working together to pick out Lee's demons one by one and doing it carefully, keeping everyone's lives in check. But just when the situation couldn't get worse, Lee activates the dispersing device they were looking for with Devil's Breath in it, leaving MJ to work with SpiderMan to defuse it before it releases. Spidey saves the civilians, MJ guides everyone to safety, now leaving room for the ultimate showdown between Spider-Man and Mr. Negative. This fight in the game leaves us with the use of the environment, dodging and weaving, and learning when to time your strikes. Spider-Man and Martin Lee do massive damage to the subway trains. Both men are on public transportation, having civilians around who are actively watching the two men fight. You need to play your moves correctly to come out on top. Spidey does prevail by defeating Mr. Negative in an epic fashion, but Spidey uses his quick wits and ingenuity to keep the subway from crashing and finally putting Martin Lee behind bars and Devil's Breath seized and protected. One of my favorite parts of the game is within the over-the-phone conversation between Pete and MJ.
Texting isn't talking? No, not that kind of over! Please say no, please say no. Okay. And not okay. What is there to figure out? Oh, you think?
With the convo flipping and changing, the vibe and the tone of both characters' text messages and delivery says it all. Pete's life as a human and superhuman is very complicated, and so is keeping things consistent and flowing with loved ones in his life, like MJ. A neat touch that brings the human aspects after all of the superhuman-like qualities and situations that Spider-Man deals with full circle once more. Peter heads back to the lab, and we now see a more overturned Otto. He is using the neural interface and fully functioning and elongated mechanical arms in his favor. While checking for bugs and inconsistencies, Peter warns Otto of potential harm this may cause if he continues use with the neural interface, embracing an angrier, more gruesome attitude that fuels Octavius' darker, more brooding side.
The neural web isn't isolating your motor neurons. It could be affecting other parts of your brain, your inhibitions, your mood. I just think we need some more testing.
We've got enough testing! For the first time in my life, I don't feel like a failure. I feel like me.
But this could permanently damage your mind. Please. We're close.
Thank you, Peter. For everything.
Martin Lee is now behind bars. When I make a promise to this city, I keep it. The people of New York will soon make a decision that could change the course of this city forever.
Liar! You have no idea what you're in for.
And so it begins. It's now known that the armored truck carrying Devil's Breath was broken into. Spidey and Yuri quickly learn that Riker inmates are now on the loose, terrorizing security and ensuing chaos all around. As Spidey damage controls everything at Riker's, we soon have even bigger problems. The Supermax prison facility, the Raft, is now experiencing major problems. Electro's back. So is Rhino. So is Scorpion and Vulture. All equipped and readied with new looks and new gear. Even Martin Lee has escaped his holding cell and is released. With a rooftop confrontation, Spidey makes his best efforts to take on his older, yet strikingly powerful foes, and gets his ass handed to him. This leaves Spider-Man shocked. No. Deep down, this leaves Peter shocked. While tossing Spidey from the roof like a pesky little bug and making his rounds to Times Square, Otto takes it upon himself to release the infectious yet deadly Devil's Breath all throughout NYC. Plaguing and infecting civilian after civilian, so many lives are affected. Even ones like Aunt May. Norman Osborn has officially made Spider-Man a fugitive, along with a priority target through Sable. But this doesn't stop Spidey from wanting to save the city from escaped Rikers and rafty escapees. Electro and Rhino wreak havoc on the Upper East and West precincts, and Feast's secondary location is a burning mess, with May, Miles, and MJ all in the same building. Spider-Man heroically saves everyone, clearing a safe path, but also overdoes himself in the process. With a badass web shot at the last minute, Miles and MJ begin helping Spidey out. As Spidey recovers and has MJ by his side, the two both clear up their troubles and issues together, and now, Spider-Man is unable to save the city all on his own. MJ plans on chasing a lead on Devil's Breath's anti-serum, and Miles is instructed to protect and keep Feast up and running with May. As for Spider-Man, his plan is to break off the Sinister Six piece by piece. Spidey traces a trail towards a secret base where Otto was planning details and busy work for all of the villains. There's a map hidden markings that are detailed as Icarus, labeling each of the Sinister Six's goals, all being Oscorp related facilities and work. But even after learning of this information, Octavius' plans worked. It was a trap to lure our friendly neighborhood hero, and now we enter Spider-Man versus Electro and Vulture. This fight consists of being more aerial, considering Electro moves quickly with his powers, and Vulture soars through the skies with his wings and booster. You'll see yourself swinging through the air, and dodging and weaving the enemy strikes and projectiles, and garnering hits when they are left open for attack. What's incredible is being able to target any of the two men in whatever order you want. Electro first, then Vulture, or Vulture first, then Electro. Spidey puts a stop to Vulture and Electro's plans, and heads straight for Scorpion next near a reservoir in Central Park. Caught off guard, Scorpion poisons Spider-Man, making the player swing through a hallucinating-induced reality that throws Scorpion's tails, the ground being straight up acid, and Spider-Man being on the rush to create an antidote before his body shuts down. As Spidey begins making the cure, his hallucinations bring out nightmares, embracing visions and thoughts about Otto. With each step of the process brings out three different sides of Octavius: the happier, more innocent version, the slightly turned and wary Otto, and the Otto who's embraced the power of the neural interface. There's even a mini boss fight between the Nightmare Scorpion, but fighting through, Spidey finally manages to create the antidote. In his underwear, of course. After taking time to head back to Feast and checking in on everyone, Miles is out risking his life trying to grab medicine supplies for Feast, but the oncoming threat that stands in his way is the brute himself, Rhino. You stealth through the area as quickly and painfully as possible, feeling like a horror sequence, especially with Rhino suspecting that someone is lurking in the area. After escaping, Riker's inmates are picking on an innocent bystander. Being hostile, they put up zero tolerance towards Miles when he sticks up for the stranger.
Hey, leave him alone!
Big mistake, kid.
Hip squared.
What the hell's he saying? Nah, I'm good, kid.
This is another clear sign. Can Miles one day become a hero of his own? Nah, just seems like classic self-defense to me. Spider-Man learns of Rhino and Scorpion's location, and finally takes stand. This boss fight consists of hand-to-hand and on-ground combat. You use the area and the environment to break down Rhino while evading his powerful charged dashes, also avoiding Scorpion and his acid projectiles as he chooses to attack from afar. This is my personal favorite boss fight in the game. It not only implements, once again, the dynamic of taking on more than 2 bosses at once, but if you didn't already know, if you rev up Scorpion and allow Rhino to charge towards Spidey, you can knock out and defeat Scorpion at the hands of Rhino's mistake. This blew my mind. It truthfully gave me an instance of having some sort of unique creative freedom and liberty to tackle the bosses in a cool way. Nonetheless, with Rhino and Scorpion down, MJ then looks for Devil's Breath's lab at Norman's penthouse, which not only manages to get through, MJ unintentionally discovers that Harry is not on that trip to Europe. Harry is actually sick, and in the midst of getting sidetracked, Sable and Osborn start moving towards the upper area of the penthouse. While uncovering the Devil's Breath lab, MJ pieces together the whereabouts of Dr. Michael's location with the possible anti-serum. While digging through files, she comes across a video displaying a younger Martin Lee. His body is showing some odd reactions, but those reactions specifically gave birth to Lee's negative powers. Bursting out of control, Lee kills his parents, but all at the hands of both Otto and Norman's experimentation. MJ is spooked by one of the lab's test spiders, making more noise than she should. She also has spiders crawling on her body, but MJ takes a break for the exit and decides to vault off the balcony, and just in the nick of time, is gracefully saved by Spider-Man. MJ fills him in on the discovery of Harry's sickness, Otto and Norman's inclusion with Lee, and a sense of doubt rushes through Spider-Man, feeling cluttered and responsible for all of this mess. But MJ reassures him, reminding them that he can do this, that he can be the one to save and capture the anti-serum.
No, not this song again. You are not alone anymore, Pete. Let Miles and me look after Feast. You find Norman. You find the cure.
Thanks, partner.
Martin Lee is ready and is storming the Oscorp facility, holding Norman hostage. As Spider-Man fights his way through, he's confronted by Silver's Sable. Despite their warring differences between stopping the situation, Sable helps Spider-Man to secure Norman Osborn by holding off the demons. Lee once again tries to turn Spidey over through his negative influences, and with the negative hallucinations, shows Spider-Man his pain and suffering. But after coming back in touch with reality and hearing the shrieks and screams of Norman Osborn's pain, Lee finally comes in contact with the Devil's Breath anti-serum. Spidey steps in and brings the battle to him, once and for all. In this fight, Lee utilizes his negative powers and negative blade to shoot out negative waves and projectiles, with various QTEs of Lee trying to grab a hold of Spider-Man and negatively influencing him. Dodging, timing your attacks, and evading is your goal. The second phase consists of Mr. Negative bringing out negative clones, while also forming a giant negative demon. When you use your environment to break through his defense and attack him head on. Triumphantly putting an end to Lee's negativity, lurking in the shadows is Otto. Everyone proves to be expendable to him, smacking Lee with his robotic arms and suppressing Spider-Man. Otto doesn't hesitate to apprehend Spidey if it means retrieving the anti-serum, and so he does, brutally, slamming and smacking Spidey around like a ragdoll, retrieving the anti-serum in the process, finally coming face to face with his old best bud, Norman, and he grabs and latches onto Norman, and both men storm off. Spidey is beaten, and Sable and Dr. Michaels rush to bring Spider-Man back to Feast for immediate help. After everything Michaels and the others do to keep Spider-Man well and alive, Spidey's biggest concern, despite all else, is worrying about May, who at this point is massively sick due to Devil's Breath. In the waking moments of feeling vulnerable, feeling powerless over his old-time mentor, and now biggest enemy, Spider-Man, is at a loss. MJ is here, encouraging Spider-Man to not think things through as a superhero, but to embrace the human side of himself. Peter Parker.
I don't know if I can beat him.
Maybe you can't. Maybe Spider-Man needs help from his friend Peter.
What?
Peter helped build those arms, remember? If anyone can find a weakness, it's him.
Go get him, Tiger.
Peter worked with Otto all throughout their scientific work together, and the same work that created Otto's undeniable power and invention can be redirected against Otto. After their conversation, the same spider we've seen momentarily attached to MJ latches off of her, climbs onto the same box that Miles grabs at Feast, and bites him. Interesting. Peter arrives back at the lab. The biggest question is, when the situation and the ongoing problem gets tough, you're left with a feeling and sense of defeat, lostness, and self-doubt. What do? We tackle that situation at hand, we rethink our strategy and our game plan from the ground up, not being afraid to ask for help, and we learn to be greater. Peter is learning to overcome the odds by being greater, repurposing parts and tech used to create Otto's arms and implementing it into a new suit. After rocking out with this new piece of equipment, it's finally time to confront Otto. Now the tides have turned. We see Octavius holding Norman over the edge, wanting him to admit to all of the lies and horrible things he's done, to expose the truth, and in return, we see Osborn claim Otto as a failure.
Mop you off the pavement.
Go! The truth is, you were only ever worth a damn when you worked for me! The truth is, you could never accept that I'm better than you! You're a failure, Otto! And you always will be!
Give me the anti-serum!
Otto, you've worked your whole life to help people. Please.
You're fighting the wrong man. But have it your way.
Otto uses his arms to attack and latch at the player in the first phase. Webbing up his arms and launching projectiles from around the environment is the best way to approach him. Spider-Man also comes equipped with a suit ability called Resupply, as your gadgets play a beneficial role in unloading webs during this boss fight. In the second phase, Otto ignites the platform beneath you and douses it in electrical flames, meaning you have to swing and throw any projectiles back at him to bring Otto back to the ground level to offer him the beating of a lifetime. For a brief moment, Otto's neural interface is disabled, causing him to panic. While inching away from Spider-Man with everything he still got, Spider-Man's mask is cracked open, exposing himself, but being recognized immediately by Otto.
Parker!
You knew?
I tried to warn you, Peter, but you didn't listen.
You knew?
I won't let you win. This means too much to me!
Not more than it means to me!
This leaves Peter confused, but what hurts even more is Otto knew of Peter being Spider-Man. Even after all of the city's chaos ensued and people's lives were harmed and put at stake, when this information hits, it hits hard. The anti-serum is still the biggest thing at stake right now, other than Otto. The anti-serum can wait. This fight means business.
Can't you see all the people you're hurting?
You'll never understand! You haven't suffered like I have!
Please, think of the man you were!
That man is gone.
You were my hero! You meant so much to me! I hate that you're making me do this! We were going to change the world!
You look tired, Parker.
Not tired.
Tired!
Just hurt.
Otto!
If you want to change the world, You have to be the kind of man who can make the hardest decisions.
I couldn't agree more. Ah! Ah! No!
The anti-serum.
Both men crash land into the building, with Peter retrieving the anti-serum, but confronted by Otto. Some of his last words to Peter is that he turned on him, just like everyone else did.
Should have known you'd turn on me, just like all the others.
Turn. I've worshipped you. Your mind, your conscience, wanting to help others. The way you never gave up. You were everything I wanted to be. You just threw it away.
Yes, of course. You're right, Peter. Oh, I see that now. The neural interface affected my mind. But I can fix it.
As soon as Peter is prepared to walk away, Otto leaves him at an ultimatum for Peter to help him and work towards shadily being better, claiming that the neural interface wasn't him. What do you do when the best friend you've selflessly helped to create a better future with, but suddenly managed to change sides on everyone, becoming a hostile wrecking machine and played at your biggest secret? Sometimes we have to let the ones who refuse to show change and turn for the better a way out of our lives. To walk away, but to be hopeful that someday things will be okay. But they have no place in our lives if they refuse to be greater. Now, Spider-Man arrives back at Feast, where engineering a vaccine is possible, but when approaching a sick Aunt May, we quickly learn that she recognizes Spider-Man as Peter Parker.
Take off your mask. I want to see my nephew.
You knew?
I've known for a while.
I never wanted you to worry.
I did. And I am so proud of you. And Ben would be too. All the people you've saved.
I don't know what to do.
Yes, you do.
Aunt May passes away. Peter Parker loses, but Spidey saves the day. Aunt May's funeral is held. Otto Octavius is thrown behind bars. We see this reignited relationship and a kiss to seal the deal between MJ and Peter. And in a surprising yet exciting moment during Peter's move, we get this.
No. It's pretty weird, right? Not that weird.
Such an exciting moment. And last but not least, Norman enters his private laboratory, showing us the sickened Harry Osborn behind a containment chamber. With a black substance formulating around him, Norman swears he will find a cure. He will bring his son back in good health and good shape. And before we know it, we see that same black substance latched right onto the glass pane. What could this be? Only time will tell. If you made it this far into the video, I just want to personally say thank you for tuning into my very first video on the channel. I know that for a video game that had came out pretty much 4 years ago, but was re-released as a remaster from nearly 2 years ago, doesn't sound all too nostalgic, but let me elaborate real quick. I want to be able to talk about video games that are not only from the past, but also are a little more modern. And I also want to make a quick PSA that I'm actually recording this audio as of March 7th, 2022. Considering that my PC finally came, and that my PC is finally here, I'm just going to make a quick update and a roundabout on what's happening and what's going on. I made this channel a little while ago. I'm finally getting around to making some of my very first videos. This was a blast to make. It was very, very underwhelming when I originally had this video planned for sometime in January of 2022, but due to circumstances and technical difficulties, I couldn't get this video out faster like I wanted to. Now, I will say this, I really appreciate anyone and everyone who decided to stick around and watch the video to the very end. This video game means a lot to me, and I do understand that this video game has come with its issues and its problems and its upbringings and its amazingness. I know for a fact that many people aren't too fond of the remaster's revision of the Peter Parker face model, which goes from John Bubniak in the PS4 version, but then immediately goes into a new face model by the guy named Ben Jordan. I know that this is very divisive and has left people with discussion after discussion after discussion, but I also wanted to reiterate the fact that I do believe that Insomniac is going to do Ben Jordan's face model justice as we see the eventual look into Marvel's Spider-Man 2 sometime in 2023. I was very happy to put together my very first video on the channel. If you guys want to see me tackle the City That Never Sleeps DLC, which takes place right after the events of the first game, then why don't you go ahead and let me know down below. But just know, content's coming. I'm making videos, things are starting to ramp up, and I want every single one of you to be excited, hyped, and intrigued as to what is to come in the near future. So, once again, thank you very much for watching the video. Please stick around and stay tuned. Social medias are posted right about here, and if you enjoyed the video, please make sure you like and subscribe, and please tune in for more.